I thought about this for years. I'm sure people have talked about it, but I personally believe that deer are selecting branches not only to rub, but like branches for licking branches, ones that have high dexterity, a lot of sinew. They aren't going to break. They're not going to die quickly because it allows them to abuse them, hold their own scent, and then be revived every single time there may be a rain or something like that. And you look at a lot of these branches. Look at the tree that we see a lot of rubs on, like cedars, right? There's not often scrapes on cedars because the branches just snap off, right? And so there's not opportunity for that norepinephrine to be transmitted between what was snapped as a licking branch and back to the actual tree that's fueling it and stuff. So like oftentimes we see this, and how many times do you see a scrape that does have those twisted up branches, but they're just hanging on by bark at this point, and they go dead the next year? I've seen that happen so many times. In one of my scout videos last year, actually the scout video that about 5 minutes into it is preceding the buck I ended up killing, where I scout that spot, closing in on the kingpin on my channel. I come across a scrape that is exactly what you're describing, Josh. Two or three branches, far bigger than my thumb, that are just snapped and hanging. And I'm like, hell yeah, like this is going to be killer. They're snapped, hanging, and dead. And that scrape the next year barely had any mature buck visits and was not even a quarter as big as it was the year before. So I think that part of the reason that certain trees that we have listed and will list here are chosen is because they can take some abuse, they give off that scent pungently, and they get revitalized very well when it comes to a rain. So not only does that deer know that I'm not going to have to revisit this every week to reestablish my orbital scent, but the sign I leave here will be, okay, I'm dominant in this area. Every doe that visits this knows I'm around for many, many weeks to come, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
It is very interesting because we don't see a lot of cedars in our states that are scraped, used as licking branches, basically, we'll say.
Mm-hmm.
But that's nearly all I found in Missouri. That and balsa wood trees like that. Couldn't buy a beech tree scrape to save my life. It was weird.
Yeah, that goes back to what I was saying earlier. I think it is location dependent, deer density, or maybe the population dependent, what they're used to. That's where your scouting comes in. As far as like identifying a very typical tree, I think it is specific to the area. There are trees like we listed, like the beech tree, for example, that almost seems to be universal, but it's not always.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But even those trees that you listed. So sorry, Jacob, what were you going to say?
Oh, you're good. I was just going to give another example. Like, and yeah, I've seen scrapes on cedars. I've seen plenty. Actually, I see like often in the bottoms in the hill country I was on, oak saplings really, really popular for scrapes. Maple sometimes too, and a lot of these islands are in the marshes here are mostly oak and maple, and I see plenty of stuff happening on maple trees too. But when you mix in a buckthorn thicket, I don't know if it's the frequency of use of a buckthorn thicket, the density of travel, its proximity to bedding typically is closer. But I've seen them scrape more on buckthorn than either an oak or sometimes an oak or a beech or a maple. And I feel like, I mean, if you've ever snapped buckthorn, it is freaking pungent. It's not, and they're strong. Like they're difficult to. You can't
It's not
just
that
like
stuff that smells like cat piss, is it?
I don't know if I'd quite describe it like that.
No, that's methamphetamine, Chris.
Yeah, right.
No, there is a plant that literally smells like cat piss that grows in river bottoms.
Yeah, there's there's some that you can snap around here that smell like blueberries too, or smell like Fruit Loops. there's just some weird. I'm actually starting to try to relate the smell of plants more back to what they are to identify them. But that's just one thing I've noticed is like buckthorn. Like, I mean, the height's right, I guess, for scrapes and stuff, but they just you wouldn't think a thorny branch like that is going to be ideal, and it's especially if it's something that's so monotonously all over. But like often see it selected more. And I still don't really know if that's proximity to bedding related.
Mhm.
But I feel like it's interesting. It's a theory I kind of want to run with more over these next few years here.
It's boxwood that smells like cat piss.
Hmm.
Okay.
How ironic, boxwood.
Cats pee in boxes. Yeah.
Yep, perfect.
Anyway,
Exactly what I meant.
Nice cover.
going further down the rabbit hole of what you were just talking about, Jacob, as far as the licking branch, the type of tree, the dexterity of the branch, how much wear and tear it can essentially take, and how much scent it can potentially hold. So I wanted to go over the Janka Hardness Scale, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I don't know if it's Janka or Janka. Maybe an arborist, if they're listening to this, can correct me. But I'm going to say the Janka Hardness Scale. And I heard about this in that episode with Greg Skufka and the Licking Branch Magic because he talked about this hardness scale. And to give you a little background, on his properties, he has ran various mock scrapes over the years and has done a lot of data and research behind these, his own data and research, I will add, but using and utilizing different branches from different trees. And one of the branches he used that he had the best results with was basswood. And he correlated that to it being the softest tree. And it was on this hardness scale. So the Janka rating scale, it's like a standardized measurement for trees, but it measures the wood's hardness or how resistant it is to denting or wear and tear. And the scale will run from 350 pounds of force to 4,000 pounds of force, right? Basswood was 410 pounds of force. So it was a very soft tree, very pliable, flexible, and one that he found didn't contain a lot of its own scent, but would hold scent quite well. I think it's actually a popular wood for beekeepers to use, is what he was saying, because it is easier for the bees to find the hives because it doesn't hold a lot of other scent. They can key in on the scent. But I don't think that relates to the deer. I think it holds scent well, and deer can really get their heads in it, get the forehead glands in it, and rub it.
Doesn't take them much effort to leave their mark.
It doesn't take much effort to leave their mark. It's easy to chew on, right? Easy to leave that scent, and for those that may not know, those deer have those is the nasovomer gland where they can essentially take scents in through their taste.
They're Jacob's gland.
Jacob's gland. Sorry, one of those glands.
It's the same thing.
Yeah, but essentially, they can taste smell to a certain extent, right? And that's part of the reason why they're licking the branches. But so I wanted to relate that Janka hardness scale into some of the trees that we had talked about. So the American beech tree, for example, it is 1,300 pounds of force. So it is much harder than the basswood. But like I said, that scale goes to 4,000. So it is still a medium to soft, a fairly soft wood. And in comparison to other woods around here, it is softer than most. A pin oak, for example, is 1,500 pounds of force. We had mentioned that one. And just a general red oak species in general is about 1,290 pounds of force. Again, that's on that medium to softer side. And one I wanted to hit on, and this is something, again, it's location dependent and something that Chris and I had found on scouting in Kentucky, places near creek systems or water, low-lying lands, stuff like that, where you get some Ohio buckeye trees. We found an area where it seemed like all the deer would leave scrapes under these buckeye trees, even with beech trees in close proximity, which kind of threw us off. And I was like, man, there's a perfectly good beech tree right there. Why are they leaving scrapes and using licking branches on these buckeye trees? Well, a Ohio buckeye tree is 770 pounds of force, right? A yellow buckeye tree, which I believe they're fairly different, but a yellow buckeye tree is 350 pounds of force, the lowest on the scale. So buckeye trees in general are very, very low on the scale compared to even a beech tree. So going back to what we were saying, as far as the pliability of the branch, the ability to leave scent easily and maintain scent, I do think it kind of goes back to that. Right? Deer love to communicate via scent, and that is an easy way for them to leave scent.
Yeah, I think one measure that he's not necessarily hitting on here is the dexterity, like the malleability of the branch, its ability to take abuse and still hold, I think is important.
Yeah, and
Um,
I would be curious going in relation to the laking branch in the ground, because we talked about leaving that norepinephrine scent through the interdigital glands, scraping in that.
mhm.
Like, how quickly does that scent dissipate in comparison to the licking branch? Well, I mean, the licking branch I feel like can be utilized, depending on the scrape, can be utilized all year round.
Yeah, so I
Okay.
have, yeah, I have
So
a
go ahead.
small bit of an answer. I think that Tom Brownlee touched on this, and I think it was up to 90 days. And
Mhm.
I have pictures of bucks smelling branches that I cut. Um, I mean, I've had them smelling it up to 4 months after. And those were specifically buckthorn branches and mature bucks. So
Because
I couldn't tell you the limit, but I can tell
I
you
mean,
that it's an oddity to them for a very long time.